Hi, everybody. Welcome to Reserve Seating. And we are in the final leg of Rob Month, and we're not slowing down. We're speeding up, if anything, because
Oh,
it's rush hour.
all right.
If you're into my witticisms, be sure to listen to this week's F This Movie, where we talk about the Three Musketeers, because we go on an entire rant about an Australian cashier at a Mexican restaurant.
I can't wait to hear it.
So
All
we
right.
are talking about Rush Hour, a movie that I'm so glad we revisited because I hadn't seen it in a number of years, and I think the sequels had made me convinced that Rush Hour was of its time,
Mm.
but it's timeless.
So I have been talking throughout this Rob month and previous Rob months about movies that come from sort of different places in my life. Most of the ones we've talked about have been like foundational, like childhood movies, like T2 and stuff like that, or Silence of the Lambs, which was my mom's favorite movie growing up. And then we talked about like newer ones like Star Trek Beyond, and last time we talked about Clue, I talked about seeing it on cable. The first thing that made me think to add Rush Hour to this list was this is one of the first movies. This movie comes out in 98. So I'm 12-ish. And this is one of the first movies where I go to see it in the theater and then buy it on VHS. Like it was like that. Like I saw this in theaters. It was great. My grandma took me to see it. And I was like, I need to own that movie. So when it came out, it was like one of the first ones where like I bought it with my own money and like owned the VHS tape on my own. And this one, again, I've watched 10,000 times. It's another one of those movies that I have memorized. I think reading some of the contemporary reviews and even seeing some more modern letterbox reviews when I was watching it yesterday, a lot of people dismiss it as sort of, well, this is just Chris Tucker trying to do Beverly Hills Cop, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
there is a element of that character, but it's also mixed with a like pretty solid Jackie Chan movie. What I would argue is his best American movie. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
The only thing like up there is the first Shanghai Noon, but that's not as good as Rush
which I
Hour.
don't have a relationship with. Like I've seen it, but I don't really have a relationship with that movie, so I'd be anxious to rewatch it just to see. But Rush Hour to me, what makes Rush Hour really stand out is not only is the script, I think, I mean, yes, there are, some racial jokes and stuff like that, some maybe some stuff that wouldn't fly today, but for the most part, like narratively sound and funny. The
Hmm.
performances, mostly Chris Tucker, but I think Jackie Chan is well underrated performance in this. Um, Structurally as a story, it just works really well. Like I think it's just a really good action movie, a buddy cop movie. It evolves in the way that the best, if we think about it as this sort of natural evolution of a 48 hours or of a running scared or something like that, it works really well. Um, but mostly, what I was impressed with the most this time is again Jackie Chan. It is a well directed in the Jackie Chan sense, which
Hmm.
is wide shots where they allow Jackie to do interesting things with the set, with the gunplay, with the different props. There's that whole last sequence where they're at the museum and he's like having to catch the things, and that's just classic Hong Kong Jackie Chan stuff. That's the stuff that so many of his American movies didn't do, where the editing was poor and they would cut around these things and he wouldn't have time in the American movies to really get them. Um, to get the stunts down, I mean. But this one, I mean, there's small moments, but there's a couple moments there where they shoot him in these masters and he's doing something really balletic and really interesting. And you're like, that probably took a whole day. Like they
Yeah.
gave him a day to actually do it. And I think so much of that is what makes this first Rush Hour movie so special. I don't have a relationship with the sequels. I know I've seen both of them maybe once. I could rewatch them. I have the trilogy on Blu-ray. It's what I watched this first one on, and I thought about maybe going to Rush Hour 2, but nothing in the sequels has ever made me want to come back. This one though is just like to me, I frankly think it's just like note for note perfect. I think it's exactly what it wants to be and exactly what it should be.
Yeah, I also love the pairing and the chemistry of these two, and it's such a wonderful thing for an audience when two actors that you put together hoping have chemistry exceed your expectations of on-screen chemistry. And I liked what you said about Jackie Chan's, obviously like his tremendous ability on screen to do physical comedy and action and stunt work and everything like that. But it's like both guys have their wheelhouse, which is Jackie Chan doing those things, Chris Tucker being the funny guy,
Right.
the comedy relief and the comedic relief and everything. But they're both good at the. They're also sneaky good, and it's a surprise that like Jackie Chan's so funny, like not with dialogue and with the way that he plays off of Chris Tucker. And Chris Tucker is just as good as a Gregory Hines or a Billy Crystal in an action comedy sense in handling the action scenes. So it's got an element of surprise to it, especially with their relationship. And it's also got that great thing in movies that I'm chasing a lot of times, which is you as the viewer love Jackie Chan's character. You as the viewer love Chris Tucker's character. And you're just waiting for them to really like each other and become friends. And when that happens, there's very few things in cinema that's more rewarding than we're all in on the friendship, we're all in on this party. This is this great thing that didn't exist an hour ago, and now it's like all you want. It's
And there's like little
yeah,
things in there, like the backstory with their fathers that they bond
yeah.
over, but then like the cultural stuff, like the war scene is so fun. And I love the way to bounce off that. Like, I love the way you see Jackie start to trust Tucker. Like, you start to
Mhm.
see him realize that he's not just this American loudmouth and that he actually kind of knows to the extent what he's doing. And
Well,
it
it's
also,
also they're like, yeah, they're disarming each other like with
yes,
their abilities because Jackie Chan's character, Inspector Lee, is discounted immediately because he's this interloper and he's not part of the FBI. So they don't want him part of the solution, even though he can help.
yeah.
And Chris Tucker is a good detective. It's just he's so unconventional in his approach. So, yeah, them kind of learning, like you said, the trust thing and that they can rely on one another is really kind of a key element of the movie.
That relationship, or that early part of that relationship, leads to the line that I still use all the time in the classroom, in real life. One of my favorite lines from Jackie Chan's character in this movie is, "You like to talk. I like to let people talk who like to talk. It lets me know how full of shit they are." I also just, in terms of performances, I love Tom Wilkinson as the villain in this. I just love seeing a slimy Tom Wilkinson. But
He's in it less than I remember.
yeah, he's not in it too much, and his plan makes no sense. And but it like
Yeah.
doesn't matter. He's just a rich guy who wants. It doesn't really, at that point, you don't even care. You don't even need that. But I also want to point out the actress who plays Soo Young, Julia Zhu, who
Yeah.
has just, I mean, she's only got like two or three scenes, but "Push the
Mhm.
goddamn button" is like one of my favorite line deliveries, and she has the Mariah Carey scene as well.
Yeah, and I think Ken Lung is really good.
Yeah.
He's the second in command to Tom
He's
Wilkinson.
scary.
He's scary and he usually is like a comedic performer. So
Yeah.
he was in a lot of like Brett Ratner stuff because he was in like X-Men The Last Stand and stuff. The sequels, I do want to touch on those a little
Yeah.
bit because um I think Rush Hour is sort of for what it is, it's a perfect movie. Rush Hour 2 like carries off the wave of the residual affection you have of the first movie for a certain amount of time.
Mhm.
But then like towards the second half of the movie and especially the third movie, it's like the underdogs become the bullies
Right.
and that's like such a bummer. And I don't know if it's like an ego thing or what it is, but yeah, like especially Chris Tucker's character becomes like I don't know, he's just provoking people and he's like really rude to people even though he's supposed to be like a cop and a civil servant and things like that. So it's sort of icky,
Yeah,
but like they get it just right in the first one though.
and we should mention one of the funny little bits of trivia that I found on
Yeah.
Wikipedia, that this movie is actually responsible for the birth of Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes.
That the website's founder was a Jackie Chan fan and was inspired to create the website after collecting all the reviews of Chan's Hong Kong action films as they were being released in the United States. And in anticipation of Rush Hour, which was Chan's first major Hollywood crossover, he coded the website in 2 weeks, and the site went live shortly before the film's release. So we have Rush Hour to thank for Rotten Tomatoes, which I don't know how to feel about.
One thing that was cool too about the time Rush Hour came out is it felt like a movie where both actors had something to prove a bit,
Yes.
and like it was just heartwarming that their success kind of coincided together because Tucker was coming off of he's who by the way has everybody was kind of like, oh, he only does Rush Hour movies
Right.
and he's gone into like this semi-retirement. But then when he does come back, he's just hitting three pointers
Yeah.
like Silver Linings Playbook, Air,
Okay.
and prior to that, like Jackie Brown and everything like that. He doesn't need to be like the diamond; he can be the setting, which is great about him. Um, but yeah, like he was riding off of Friday and Money Talks and Rush Hour was like the next big step. And Jackie Chan broke out in America with American versions of some of his movies from Hong Kong, like Rumble in the Bronx and Super Cop and Operation Condor and First Strike. But those movies, like they did well comparative to like probably what it cost for Dimension or New Line to acquire them, but they weren't like $100 million hits. So like this was sort of like, okay, Jackie Chan, what do you got? Like this is your big American movie chance, and it's just so awesome that it came together as well that it did.
And again, that they gave him that opportunity to do his work. You know what I mean? Maybe not
Yeah,
as much as in one of the films he directed, but like certainly a good amount of stuff in here, more so than I remembered. This movie also has good explosions. Remember we used to actually blow stuff up?
there's fire, real fire.
Real fire. I watched a direct to video movie this week in which there was a scene where a police helicopter was chasing a vehicle and the spotlight was CGI.
I do want to point out that this movie has a banger soundtrack.
Yes.
It has "Can I Get a" by Jay Z. It says "How Deep Is Your Love" by Drew Hill. But my favorite song on there is, and I love when this happens with soundtracks. It's called "Faded Pictures" and it's by Case and Joe. And it's clearly like they haven't seen the movie because it's about like lost love and stuff. And I'm just like, what does this have to do with Rush Hour? But this
Yeah.
song is amazing, and I remember listening to the album on my way to see Rush Hour. I was so excited about Rush Hour. I bought the soundtrack before I saw the movie, and that was my first solo driving trip with my friends after I got my driver's license. And I remember getting to the theater and driving up on the curb, and my friends telling me what a bad driver I was. And it's a great 90s New Line movie.
And it's a great 90s New Line movie.
It's the new lineiest of new
It is
lines.
one of the most New Line movies ever. I adored it.
So, Rob, this is wrapping up Rob Month.
Mhm.
Rank the four movies we watched for Rob Month: Star Trek Beyond, My Cousin Vinny, Clue, and Rush Hour, from your favorite to fourth favorite, most
It's
favorite.
Yeah, so this is tough, but I'm gonna go Clue first, then Vinny. It's boring, but yeah, Clue first, then Vinny, then this, uh, and then Star Trek Beyond, but only because Star Trek Beyond is so new. Like
Yeah,
that, it could evolve into. How about you?
I would go My Cousin Vinny, and then I'm torn between Clue and Rush Hour, but I think my heart wants Rush Hour 2.
Yeah,
Not Rush Hour 2,
not
it
Rush Hour
wants
2.
Rush Hour second.
Yes.
Clue third, and then Star Trek Beyond fourth. But like you said, they're all great movies. They're all really fun. So this is the most flowers a Brett Ratner movie will ever get at
Yeah,
reserve seating.
yeah, yeah. The less said, the better.
So thank you again for programming Rob Month. This was wonderful. Next month is Adam Month. So we will be back next week with our first movie, and that is not Live, Die, Repeat. It is called Edge of Tomorrow, one of the best movies of the 2010s, and I'm excited to revisit it. Yeah, and also I just decided this because this is tying in with the week the Fall Guy opens.
Hmm,
Our review next week is sponsored by the Fall Guy.
sure.
Why not? So until next time.
When you walk by every night, sweet these seats are reserved.
How long is this flight? 15 hours.
What? What is it good for?